ekam aksharam hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham. हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रं यहम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति. हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता आनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्य स्थितो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुत कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. In this satsang of Bhagavan devotees, we have been meditating on the verses of Anma bodham, especially the Tamil translation by Bhagavan. We find ourselves in verse number 8 and verse number 9 as today's verses. The Sanskrit verses go like this. Upadane kiladhare jaganti parameshware sargastitit layantyanti budbudani varini. That is 8. Some of the versions of Atma bodham, for instance the Ramakrishna ashrams, we don't find that verse. Verse number 9. Satchidatman anusyute nitye vishnau prakalpitah vyaktayo vividah sarva hatake katakadivat. We go with the translation of Bhagavan. We take the 8th verse first. We find that from verse number 6, Adi Shankara has been taking the relationship between the world and the Paramatman, the world and the Atmaswarupa. He has been taking us through a series of examples to show the relationship between the world and the Supreme. He began in verse number 6 with the dream experience, that the entire creation is nothing but the dream of the Supreme. And as soon as the dream ends, it all is realized to be the Supreme itself. The second example given is that of the silver in the shell, the silver in the seashell, that the Adhara is the seashell, but if you look at it from afar on the beach, it may appear as though many silver coins have been, somebody has spilled that on the beach, and you may run anxiously looking for some wealth. But on close examination, the Adhara will become evident, the seashell will become evident, and the silver, which was a false promise, but which was not apart from the seashell, that will vanish. So up to that was verse number 7 we have seen. But in the metaphors itself, the comparison itself, we find that the Acharya is slowly accommodating more and more of our experience of the world. In the beginning, he is expecting the best of us, that we will treat the whole world as a dream. Oh, I am not able to treat, I can still see value in many of the things of the world. Then he gives the example of the silver on the seashell, that go near and examine. Is that powerful post, is that going to give you happiness? You go and on close examination, you will find a different thing. But then if you still persist that I don't see the world and God as the seashell and the silver, but I see them to be having a separate existence. The worlds have separate existence, though the many worlds may look alike, the Earth, the Platon, so the various planets, the galaxies to galaxies, they may appear to be lot similar, but they are all apart from each other. Then in verse number 8, Buddha, Adi Shankara gives the example of bubbles in water. Consider the whole of creation to be bubbles in water. So if you see the water, then the bubbles vanish. If you say no, I don't see them like bubbles in water connected to each other and of same nature, they have so much difference in existence. It was a long time ago that they thought that all the galaxies are present in the Milky Way itself. About 100 years ago, the astronomy studies, they revealed, they were feeling that all the other galaxies seen were just images present inside the Milky Way galaxy, which is about, let's say, 100,000 light years across in distance. Now they realize that there are about 2 trillion galaxies other than the Milky Way. 2 trillion galaxies by their calculations they find. So that means the Buddha, it is not like the bubbles in water. They are all having separate existence and appear to be so huge and so much apart. Then Shankara condescends and says, treat them like the various ornaments made of the same stuff, made of gold. So though they appear like that, we will find in the subsequent verses also, little by little, Adi Shankara will provide for the experience of the world as separate, and then he will catch hold of our very own separating nature and say, if you are so separate, why don't you look at yourself? The same adhara that is there for the world is the adhara for you. So look at yourself. He will come and mention it like that. But it's a very interesting series of metaphors that we are going to come across. So let us see the current 8th metaphor, which is the bubbles and the water. And the 9th verse metaphor, slightly more separate, is like the kataka and the various jewels made out of that, the gold and the various jewels made out of gold. Let's go into the verses. Verse number 8. Let me just silence this so that we don't get disturbed once again. The verse goes like this. Mudarkaranamai muludin adharamam aduvam paresan ahatte udadi udi kumiligal pol உலகங்கள் எல்லாம் உதித்து இருந்து ஓயும் உணர். முதற்காரணமாய் முழுதின் ஆதாரமாம் அதுவாம் பரேசன் அகத்தே உதி குமிழிகள் போல். Udadi is water. Udi kumiligal is the bubbles arising. உலகங்கள் எல்லாம், all these universes, உதித்து, they arise, இருந்து, they exist, ஓயும் உணர். So how to find out the truth of all these worlds? If you see an interview by Brian Cox, I think, one of the scientists of today, on the YouTube, you will find that he presents the information I gave, that there are 2 trillion galaxies, and that is in the known part of the universe. And the interviewer says, I cannot wrap my mind around this concept. It seems to be so huge that the numbers seem to be 2 trillion. I can understand 200,000, that means 2 lakhs. Those are numbers I can wrap my mind around. But 2 trillion galaxies, with each galaxy having so many billions of stars. Now, what is that? Then Cox says that even scientists cannot wrap their mind around that. They make calculations based on some theories that they have, but this is more or less what is out there. And the great ones, Adi Shankara, they reduce it from plane to plane. Don't try to solve the problems in the same plane in which the problems are present. Time and space are present in the sensory area. So don't try to solve all these trillions of stars in the sensory area. You will still feel separated by them. You will still feel that you are a small speck in the whole cosmos. The earth itself is a small speck, you will feel. Therefore, change the game. Change it to the dimension of consciousness, the inner dimension, which always outstrips the outer dimension. Whatever the distances may be, it may amount to trillions of light years, trillions of kilometers, or trillions of stars. It doesn't really matter, because they are all made of the same stuff, existence, consciousness. So if you hold the substance out of which they are all made, the material cause out of which they are all made, then you have all of them in hand. And this also includes and transcends that plane. We had seen in one other session how the 2-dimensional square, that which has length and breadth, it is made of many lines which are of single dimension. You put many lines at 90 degrees to the single dimension plane, Then you get a square, rectangle, triangle and all that. That means the two-dimensional plane includes the single-dimensional plane. The three-dimensional plane of cuboid includes the single dimension and the two-dimension planes in it, because the cube is made of many squares or rectangles put together. Therefore, all the inner dimensions, the higher dimensions, emotions, indriyani paranyahu, indriyabhyah param manah, manasastu parabuddhi, yo buddhe paratastu saha. That means the indriya loka, the sensory objects, are lesser than the senses. The senses are of a greater dimension than the sensory objects. If you examine the senses, then you are crossing the sensory plane. We can get a feel of this, that to see an object, you need the sunlight entering your eyes, and you also need the consciousness to come and fill the eyes. Even if the sunlight is present and the object is present, due to, let's say, blindness or going to sleep, if the consciousness does not fill the eye, then the sunlight cannot do anything in making the object felt, seen. Therefore, the consciousness raising and occupying the eye as that ability to see is far more a real light than the sunlight itself. One can also understand it by going to the state of being in a dark room. In a dark room, though the sunlight is not there, the eyes can still perceive it is dark. The darkness can be seen. Therefore, the consciousness is of a deeper dimension and includes the trillions of stars and other things. This is the water. Those are the Udadi Kumiri. The consciousness existence is the water. The whole of creation, the whole of universes are only the bubbles that arise, exist and subside in that water of self-awareness. So when one is going to do Atma Vicharam, where is Bhagavan taking us? All those stars are present within us in the consciousness. That is where Bhagavan is taking us. Mudal karanamai muludin adaramam aduvam paresa nahatte, which is the Mudal karanam and adaram. Mudal karanam is the first cause and adaram is the support or substrate. It is the Pareshan, it is the Parameshwaran, it is the Atma, it is the Paramatma. In Bhagavan's teachings, we don't differentiate between Atma and Paramatma. To Bhagavan, there is only one. If you say Jivatma or Paramatma, it will imply that the other is present. Therefore, to avoid that, Bhagavan will always refer to as Atma only. There is neither Jiva nor Parama. That means only the Supreme is there. Only the Atma is there. So that is the Mudal Karanam. The Atma is the Mudal Karanam of what? Of all the universes. And Bhagavan has covered this in Ulladu Narpadu. Naan Ezhundapin Ellam Ezhum. In that Ellam Ezhum, all the universes are included. But when we meditate on Anma bodham, it becomes amply clear to us that one need not be outward turned anymore to learn anything about what is all this. What is the astronomical distances that are present? What is the seen universe? What is the unseen universe? Do the planets have an effect on us? Do our karmas depend on the planetary positions? All these are solved by going to Mudal Karanama, Adarama, Brahman or Atman. In that, all the universes, Udadi, Udi Kumiri. Udadi is water, Udi Kumiri. In water, when bubbles arise, they arise in the water, they exist in the water, and they dissolve in the water. Like that, all the universes arise, exist, and dissolve. two supports from Bhagavan. One is Yugapat Srishti, which we saw in verse number 7 of Ulladu Narpadu. What Bhagavan says? Ulagum Arivu Ondrai Udithu Odungum Enum Ulagu Arivatannal Olirum. Both the seen universes and the seeing light of consciousness rise and set together. Not that came into being with Big Bang and this came now. No. Both are rising and setting together. Enum, however, Ulagu Arivatannal Olirum. How the scientists are exploring that the world began, the universe began, we are the guys trapped inside this body. So we were born some 60 years ago, 50 years ago and all that. That is the error, says Bhagavan. We are not the body. We are not merely the star stuff. We are something beyond the star stuff. The scientists have come up to the point that we are all made of star stuff. They have found that the stars were merely hydrogen and some elementary gases with atomic number 1, 2 in the beginning. And in their nucleus of huge stars were the higher elements created. The higher elements like oxygen, like nitrogen and other things were created with stars, huge stars at their core having so much heat. The higher elements were created. They were spread all over the universe, and that is how our body is made of all that. So we are, as far as the body is concerned, we are made of star stuff. Up to that they have come. But what about the mind? What about the consciousness? They don't have answers still. So the Vedanta says, Bhagavan says that consciousness is the key. And the consciousness exists, the Atma exists before creation. It exists during creation. It exists after creation. Therefore, Atma is the Mudar Karanam. Atma is the substrate. The whole universes are mere bubbles. And that too, creation is reduced in Yugapat Srishti to this now moment. In this moment, consciousness rises, all the universes rise. Ulagum Arivum Ondrai Udithu Odungum Enum. However, Ulagu Arivatannal Olirum. All the universes are known to the rising consciousness. Ulagarivu. Therefore, now concentrate only on the consciousness that has risen. Ulagarivu Tondrimarai Darkidanai. For the knowledge about the cosmos to rise and set, there must be a consciousness as Adhara which does not rise and set. That is the self. Ulagarivu Tondrimarai Darkidanai Tondrimarayadolirum Poondramam Ahude Porul. So that is one support that Bhagavan gives, that the whole of the universes are nothing but the bubbles present in water. When you do self-enquiry and come to that knowledge which is attending to itself, which is not even rising as Ulagarivu, at that time all those bubbles are now present in all their dimensions inside the self-attending self. All that knowledge, all that existence Bhagavan has gathered together, brought it to the Atman and made us merge in that Atman. So all those universes are there. That is why Bhagavan says to Nagalakshmi Amman that what you see as a nice saree in another, that is already in you. The whole cosmos is in you. Why not that saree? The whole concept of something is beautiful, it is already in you. It is in the Atma Swarupa. When all those universes themselves are present as mere bubbles in water, why not? Why should you seek for the saree or something outside? You are the richest sovereign. You are already in possession of all that which is present in any of those universes. So, Mudar Karanamai, Muludin Adharamam, Aduvam Paresa Nahatte, Udadi Udi Kumidi Polga, Ulagangal Ellam, Udithu, Irundu, Oyum, Unar. They arise exist and subside in the same water, is what Bhagavan says. And in Arunachala Pancharatnam also, Bhagavan says for another support, Sittirama Ifdellam Semmalaye Ninpale Uddidamai Nindre Udungiduma. And earlier he would have said, Virikadiral Yavum Vilungu. Inside that Virikadir only, all the universes are present. So when we go and subside in that Virikadir, it is the same as being one with whatever is present in any of those universes. In fact, it is this one substance which is projected and felt as though something is there outside, there, out there. So Mudar Karanama, Mududin Adarama, Aduva, Paresan Ahate. That is the first cause and that is the support. In that, all the universes you see are present as bubbles present in water. They exist, they arise, and they subside. So from the example or the metaphor of the dream, the Acharya moves to the metaphor of silver on the shell. If we can't understand that if you go close by and examine, then happiness is really not out there. The happiness is in you. There is a psychologist, one Mr. Gilbert, who specializes in the study of what is called as synthesis of happiness. In fact, what Bhagavan calls as natural happiness, he finds that we can all synthesize happiness. Very interestingly, he says that it is a research-based, which is what science follows, isn't it? That it's a research-based presentation, research of so many years. If you Google it and YouTube it, you will be able to get Gilbert on happiness. He says that suppose you had two scenarios before you, that you have this goal of being happy in the long run, and two scenarios to choose. Whether you would want to choose the $300 million lottery in Canada to be a winner of that, or to undergo an accident in which you lose the use of your two legs. Then the whole of the audience, they put up their hands. Of course, he encourages them and they say they would always like to choose the first option. $300 million lottery is better. Then he says that he puts up this chart also, which also shows that yes, $300 million is better. Then he says, no, I was just lying to you. This is not right. The synthesis of happiness shows that within 1 year, the person who has lost both the legs and the person who has gained $300 million in lottery have the same level of happiness. That means whatever is the positive effect of $300 million or the problem created. The Stephen Hawking, you should remember, did not have use of his sensory body for years on years. And you couldn't find a more humorous and happy person than him. The science research says that both those people have the same level of happiness. That's how he starts his video. That means what we think is happiness out there, in the world out there, it's not there at all. That one can synthesize the happiness. He quotes somebody called James Brown from BROWNE. I'm not sure whether the first name is James. I can always forward those things in the group. Who says that I have something in me that makes me the happiest person who ever existed, because I can make poverty into riches, and I can be more stronger than Achilles, who at least had one infirm thing in his heel. I don't even have that, or something like that. I'm merely paraphrasing. That there is something in us which is far more transcending than all the universes put together, is what the psychologist has also come. So what is real education then? The real education is not the education that gives us knowledge about the gathering of matter or healing of matter, but how to synthesize happiness within us. That seems to be the real education which is going to come about, because if psychology has come to that conclusion, then it is hardly any step for general education to pick it up that merely knowing money adding schemes and knowledge adding schemes of no use if the happiness that comes out of it can be created within us and really does not exist in those things. Then the future of education is definitely going towards this meditation and the inner peace and happiness that he calls is synthesized, but Bhagavan calls as natural happiness present in all. But that is the direction in which we are all going, that from the outer to the inner. Only the metaphors are becoming more and more convenient to our experiences in Ajnana. That the metaphors are tougher earlier. He wants us to consider the whole universe as a dream, then as a mere silver in the conch shell or silver seashell. And this 8th verse, he wants us to consider that the whole of the universes are merely bubbles present in water, and that water is you. That water in which all the universes are present is the self-aware you, is the verse number 8. Let's move on to verse number 9, where the 50% data is consumed. Okay, that's okay. Now, the next metaphor is going to be little bit more easier, if one can use the scientists' words, for our mind to wrap around. The verse goes like this: Sachitanandan Sakalatum Ul Ulan Ichanam Vishnu Nilai Tannil Sochama Ponnil Kadagadi Poluppal Totramelam Anniyam Andrendrari. So the metaphor is becoming a little bit more easier to relate to our experience if we want our ignorance to be included by the Acharya. He turns from the bubble and water metaphor to ornaments and gold metaphor. That all the worlds are like the ornaments. The universes were bubbles. Now the universes are ornaments, and they are all made of the same stuff, gold. If you see the gold, you don't need to differentiate between them, though they appear to be differentiated. This is called as the projection. What Nandakumar puts it as Vivartoba Dana Karanam. That is, Vivartoba Dana Karanam is that the same stuff, without changing its nature, appears to be different stuffs. Vivartavada, that projection, the same Brahman appears to be like these different universes. The bubble required us to see all the universes in one watery, one connected way. But even if you don't see the connection, if you don't see everything is connected, still, if we can see them as ornaments made of gold, then too we can subside into the self, understanding that the self-attentive self includes all the ornaments. If you have the gold, then all the ornaments are included in it. All the universes are present in us as the self-attentive self. Sachitanandan. Sat Chit Anandan. The existence, consciousness, bliss put together. That is the Adhara. The Ulla Porul. Ulla Unarva. Ulla Porul, Ulla Unarva. Ulla Unarva is Sat Chit. Sat Chit means the Unarva that is Ullad, that is always existing. Ulladala, Ulla Unarva Ullado. Can the Sat Chit exist apart from the Sat? No. Sat Chit is only for our reference. It is included in the Sat itself. Satchitananda is included in the Sat itself. So Satchitananda, it cannot be anniya to the Sadvastu. Ulla porulukku anniyamaga irukka mudiyadu. So Satchittanandan Sakalatum Ulvulan. The Satchitananda is present within everything. What is this within everything? Everything is present in the Triputi, is present in the seer, seeing, seen. The experiencer or experiencing of seer, seeing, seen. Let us slow down and go through this Sakalattum Ullulan. That is a very interesting explanation to see. We will feel as though Sakalam is like that, and within each one, the Satchitananda is present. But let's investigate it a bit practically. That Sakalattum Ullulan, what does it mean? That means that when I go into the self-enquiry, God is inside me, isn't it? God is inside me. At one point, I feel Sakalattum Ullulan means that I am also one of the beats. The others are also beats. So Satchitananda is connecting all of them. But then there is still difference there between the beats and connection, isn't it? Therefore, at that point, one should inquire who feels that there are many beats, that there are many beings, that there are, let's say, for example, 7 billion beings, 7 billion human beings. There could be many divine beings and there could be many other beings. We don't know. But we get the idea that so far as the seer seen is there only, then only I am seeing 7 billion people apart from me. But if I ask the question, who is seeing 7 billion beings, then that very Triputi is collapsed. The seeing and seeing drop off and the attention is turned on the seer alone. Therefore, where is the Sakalattum Ullulan to be seen? Sakalattum Ullulan is to be seen inside each one only. They cannot be imagined to be in everyone. No, that's mere imagination. Where Sakalattum Ul, we have not gone. So Sakalattum Ullulan has to be experienced within. And at which point does the flowchart break? Suppose when you see 7 billion people apart from me, and you imagine God is within every one of them, that is where we break the flowchart. We should go one step deeper. We should ask, who is it that sees these beings apart from me? The answer will still be me alone. I am seeing. Therefore, who am I? Put the attention, who am I? The attention which was going towards 7 billion people is turning inside you. That self-attentive self is the adhara, is the source of everything, of every being. And you are that. You cannot be anything else. So therefore, Sakalattum Ullulan can be experienced only in this manner. Even one step less, as Bhagavan says to the Maharani, it will be an imagination of the mind. It will not be a real experiencing of Sakalattum Ullulan. So with that practice of Atma Vicharam in mind, Satchitanandan, Sakalattum Ullulan, Ichanam Vishnu. Ichanam Vishnu is, Ichanam here means Totramillada. Because of its self-attention, can never be seen. It is the seer alone, the pure Drikka. Therefore, Ichanam Vishnu, he cannot be a seen. The moment he is a seen, vastu full illai. So, Vishnu here means the one who is permeating everyone, has to be Ichan. Ichan means the one who cannot be seen. There is no seeing him. There is only being him. You can be Vishnu. You cannot see Vishnu. Because the moment you see, he is not in. Isn't it? Therefore, Sakalattum Ullulan, Ichanam Vishnu, Nilaitannil. That in that state, where you can go and be as Vishnu, Swachanam Ponnil, in the pure gold. Of course, 22 carat or 20 carat, out of which we make Kadagadi Polum, like the Kadagam, the bracelet, or the what you call today as what you put around your wrist. Gents and ladies put that ornament, and all the other ornaments are made of the same gold, isn't it? This is a metaphor we have been using for long, but only we are connecting it to sadhana now. That if you see the self-attentive self, then all the ornaments are present in that. Though it cannot be a seen one. It is the summation. It is all the kalyana are present in that self-attention. All the lokas are present in that self. Swachanam Ponnil Kadagadi. Polum Paltotrumelam. All the universes Whether it be so many light years, so many trillion galaxies, doesn't matter. There is no need to wrap our mind around that. There is only need to reduce the mind to nothing in self-attention. When you go to self-attention, the mind itself does not exist there. All the mind's wealth is present in that self-attentive self. Totramelam anniyam unrenderary. None of those universes, none of that happiness outside can be outside of this true happiness. How is that psychologist able to find that one can synthesize the happiness from within? Because that Paramatman is present within. That even the poverty is turned to riches. the why do saints deliberately keep themselves poor? Because the riches are not out there. That can be lost, that can be taken away, that can be devalued. Whereas the real rich here, that is the self-attention, it is actually the summum bonum of everything. It is all the universes present inside you. That is why they say the Rishi can contain all the seven seas in his Kamandalu. What seven seas? All the universes put together are inside each one of us. It's only one has to turn within and abide as that self-attentive self. Swachama ponnil kadagadi, polum pal totramelam anniyam andreri. None of that happiness you feel as outside there. Let me finish this. Let me reach that. If I get it, if I become that, all that is untrue. All that is in the Triputi. All that is in one of the universes. Will the human beings be happy if they go and colonize Mars? Because we are going to be bereft of resources here. Will we be better off? Maybe in one plane that inquiry has some substance for scientists. But to the Atma Vichari, the Mars, all the beings who can go and tenant in any of the lokas are present within oneself as the Ichanam Vishnu, the Sarvavyapi who cannot be seen. He is never the Drishya. He is always the Drik. He is the pure Drik. And in that pure Drik, all the universes are present in that self-attentive self, where the Triputi is collapsed, where the seer seeing seen, knower knowing known is collapsed into the self-attentive self. In that lies all the universes, just like in the first metaphor, the whole dream collapses into the dreamer. In the second metaphor, the silver gets absorbed in the shell. In the third metaphor, how the bubbles all merge into that water. And in this fourth metaphor, how all the ornaments are indeed made of the gold. All this stuff is made of you, the self-attentive self, says the Acharya. Let us sit in Atma-Ucharan till 7 o'clock, where we will listen to Akka. Revatima, you can set the time for us.
Yes, Uncle.
Thank you, Ujjalji.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining is the self in all beings. We say just now, Nandakumar ji also referred to this concept or this phrase with reference to the verse, the self, shining as the self in all beings. The examples are being given to us, as Nandakumar ji says, of the dream of the silver in the shell, the bubbles on water, and the gold in ornaments. He says that Nandakumarji pointed out to us that they are increasingly, the examples given are increasingly as concessions to our non-acceptance of the truth. And of course, he explained why it is so, because when we look at the dream analogy, the moment we wake up from the dream, it is obvious to us that there is absolutely no reality in the dream. We are able to accept it. We are able to say, oh, that was only a dream. We are able to clearly see there is nothing, no truth to it. And we are also able to see that the dream was not apart from the self at any point of time. All the images in the dream were only images springing from me, sustained in me, and which go back into me, as it is said over here. They are arising on, like the bubbles arise in the water, are sustained by the water, and as they get back into the water the same way. But there is no sense of separateness in the dream. This is very clear to us. In fact, the dream experience is given to us to understand how everything is Ishvara Swarupa. When Bhagavan says in Ulladhu Narpadu, Chittiramum Parpanum Serpadamum Aroliyum Attanayum Tanamavan, everything is Ishvara Swarupa. How is it possible, if our mind asks? Then the dream experience is enough evidence. If in the dream I can be everything and myself, and I can be the Supreme, why not? The Supreme only is everything, is an absolute possibility. No, it is the truth. So this dream experience is, in that sense, A, it makes us understand the unitary, all-pervading nature of the self. B, it makes us understand the illusory nature of all other experience, which is at the same time not apart from the self at any point. It's not apart from the self at any point, but it is still illusory. So this we can understand in the dream. In the silver in the shell, what happens? It is still known to be a mirage. The silver was always a mirage. The silver did not exist at any point of time. It is an optical illusion. It appeared to exist and it disappeared when we, on closer examination. So it appears to exist at a particular point of time. That is a concession which is given in that example, that it appears to exist. In the dream analogy, we are ready to dismiss the entire dream as totally illusory. Whereas in a mirage, we say we are still seeing that. The seeing of the silver in the shell is real, while the silver itself is not real. So there is a concession. We are still giving some degree of reality to our experience. Then what happens in the bubbles in the water? We say that the bubbles appear, they exist, and then they disappear. Whereas the silver never existed in the shell. The silver never existed. It did not have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Whereas the bubbles in the water have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have a life of their own, but they are all only of the nature of water. They do not have a life of their own apart from the water, but they appear to have a life of their own. That is the kind of feeling that we may have. And when we come, but at the same time, what happens when we see the bubbles in the water, we are constantly, our attention is still on the water. Because the bubbles are appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing, it is very clear that it's all happening in the water. So it is easier to take the attention back to the substratum. When we see bubbles in water, the connection with the substratum is very strong. But what happens when we come to ornaments of gold? There, the ornament, though we say it is made of gold, the ornament takes a lot of prominence in its place. We get attracted to its name, its form, and we see each ornament as being different from the other ornament. We see the bangle as being different from the earring, from the necklace, and all these are different from each other. It is only when we are reminded that they are all gold, then we accept that they are all gold. And then too, what do we do when we look at the ornaments of gold? Bhagavan says in his Anma Panchakam, he points out the mistake that we make. And that is what Nandakumarji was highlighting. He was saying that one set, that substratum, if we get caught in the multiplicity, we will be in the position of that queen to whom Bhagavan gave the specific instruction: find within yourself the truth. Find that truth first. And also Nandakumarji reminded us about the Eka Jiva Vada. That is the Yugapat Shrishti. Because we may tend to say there are many beings in which each of the beings, we do teach children even now in our camps and in our songs, we say, within the heart of everyone, the self shines, divine shines as I. We say it is there within. And Sadhu Om Swami says, you must find it within, as Bhagavan said to the queen. Why should we find it within? இங்கு கண்ட பிறகுதான் இருப்பதெல்லாம் அவன் மயம். To understand that everything is that. The purpose of turning within is not to discover a separate God or a separate self, a separate bliss within ourselves. It is in order to recognize that there is nothing apart. So in Ekanma Panchakam, Bhagavan says, Tannul Tanu Irukka. The body is within the self. It is not that the self is within the body. So he says, when we look at the ornaments of gold also, we should understand that the ornament is in the gold. The gold is not in the ornament. We always tend to think that the gold is in the ornament. That is not the case, says Bhagavan. The gold is not in the ornament is in the gold. Because the ornament is as mythical as the silver in the shell. Why? What makes us say, for instance, that a dream is a dream? What makes us say a dream is a dream? During the course of the dream, a dream is not a dream. It is very much a reality for us. When it ends, then we say, oh, that is not true now. Therefore, it was a dream. Similarly, if we were to melt the golden ornament, then we can say, oh, the ornament is not there now. The ornament is not there now. So when the ornament has gone away, how real was the ornament? When it was there, how could it be called real? In that case, the dream also should be called real, isn't it? It is not called real because it is transient. It disappears. It appears and it disappears. Similarly, the ornament appears and it disappears, and the gold alone remains. Another thing, another secret which is taught to us is that the gold never becomes an ornament. The gold does not become an ornament at any point of time. The gold remains as gold. The gold does not change into an ornament. We sometimes say, it may be just as a matter of speaking, we say, the embodied self. Of course, we say Bhagavan is embodied self. We say that. But actually, it does not literally mean that the self has become a body. The self does not become anything at all. This is the truth, because everything is in the self, or rather, everything appears in the self, and then appears to be sustained in the self, and then it disappears in the self. If we see such a process, if we cognize such a process, then Bhagavan is giving us the example of the bubbles in the water, that they seem to appear, they seem to exist for a short time, and then they seem to disappear. But even when they appear, are they apart from the water? They are not. Even when they are having their own sustenance, they just seem to be moving around here and there and having a real life of their own. At that time also, they are not apart from the water. And of course, when they disappear, they are not apart from the water. Similarly, the ornaments of gold. In all these verses, the substratum, as Bhagavan says in Ekanma Panchakam, is Tannul Tanu Ireka. Everything is contained in the self. The trillions of Milky Ways, the trillions of galaxies can, as he said, be so simply experienced by experiencing the self. Everything being contained. And Bhagavan says the story of the universe begins and ends in the heart. In Ramana Gita, Bhagavan says that the story of the universe begins and ends in the heart. Because when the I thought arises, then the world arises, then the universe arises, then probably galaxies and trillions of galaxies arise. And the reverse, when one goes back, these are absorbed into the mind, into the thoughts, and the thoughts are absorbed into the heart in deep sleep. What happens? All those trillions of galaxies are dissolved in the heart. And when they rise again from the heart. So the story of the universe is contained in the heart, Bhagavan says. And that is where Bhagavan is taking us back to the substratum. Again and again we find Nandakumarji's emphasis on that substratum. And Acharya and Bhagavan are also taking our attention one way or the other, as Bhagavan says in Ekashloki, somehow or the other you become Atmanishto Bhavatvam. Like that he says. So they are cajoling us, or Bhagavan is cajoling us somehow or the other to keep our attention only on the substratum. No matter what our perception of the universe, let us get back to the substratum, which is the self. And once that is done through self-inquiry, automatically all the answers will be revealed, because that is the magnificence of the grace of the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramanaka. Couldn't have been
Namo
better.